Most people buy a lottery ticket once, lose, and never try again. But one man in Orlando, Florida didn't just win once, he won 7 times. 7 separate jackpots, over $1 million in total. And he claimed it wasn't luck, it was a system. This is the story of Richard Lustig, the man before the money. Richard Lustig was born on December 1, 1950 in Orlando, Florida. Before anyone knew his name, he was just a guy chasing a different kind of dream. He spent years as a rock drummer and singer, touring and performing, trying to make it in the music industry. When that chapter closed, he reinvented himself as an entertainment booking agent, running his own company called Lustig Talent Enterprises, founded in 1986, providing talent for casinos, corporate events, fairs, and festivals. By the early 1990s, Richard was in his early 40s. No massive fortune, no fame. Just a regular man in Orlando trying to get ahead. He had a wife, 2 kids, and bills like everyone else. He wasn't broke, but he wasn't comfortable either. Then in January 1993, he bought a scratch-off ticket and won $10,000. Most people would have celebrated, spent the money, and moved on. Richard did something different. He started paying attention. 7 wins, 1 pattern. That first $10,000 win in January 1993 wasn't a fluke to Richard. It was data. He began studying his own behavior, tracking which tickets he bought, how he picked numbers, and what patterns he noticed. He wasn't a mathematician, he wasn't a statistician. He was just a man obsessed with figuring out something everyone else had given up on. 4 years later, in August 1997, it happened again. A Fantasy 5 win worth $13,696.03. Not life-changing money, but proof, at least in his mind, that something was working. Then in June 2000, he won a Wheel of Fortune scratch-off second chance drawing, a trip to Los Angeles valued at $3,594.66. 4 months later, in October 2001, another second chance scratch-off drawing sent him on an Elvis Presley trip to Memphis worth $4,966. 4 wins in 8 years. Interesting. But what came next was something else entirely. On January 15, 2002, Richard Lustig matched the winning numbers in the Florida Mega Money Jackpot. The prize, $842,152.91, nearly $1 million in one ticket. He didn't lose his mind, he didn't blow it all in a weekend. He paid off his debts, hired a financial advisor, bought himself a Jaguar, and started planning cruises. And then, quietly, he kept playing. On November 25, 2008, he won a Fantasy 5 jackpot worth $73,658.06. Then on August 9, 2010, he won again. Another Fantasy 5 prize, $98,992.92. 7 wins, 7 separate jackpots. A total of $1,052,205.58 in verified Florida lottery prizes. All documented on the Florida Lottery's official website and confirmed by the Orlando Sentinel. But here's what nobody was asking yet. Was this genius, or was this just the luckiest man alive? The system he swore by. After the $842,152.91 jackpot, Richard Lustig became a man on a mission. He wasn't satisfied with one big win. He wanted to understand the system behind it. He spent years refining what he called his method, a set of rules he believed gave him a statistical edge over the average player. His core principles were specific. First, never use quick-pick tickets. He believed computer-generated numbers kept your odds at their absolute worst because they changed every single time. Instead, he insisted on picking your own numbers manually, every draw without exception. Second, avoid birthdays and anniversaries. Most people limit themselves to numbers between 1 and 31, which covers less than half the available number pool in most lotteries. Richard argued this was a critical mistake that millions of players made without realizing it. Third, consistency. Once you picked your numbers, you stuck with them. Every single drawing. No skipping, no switching. His logic was simple. If your numbers hit on a draw you skipped, you'd never forgive yourself. Fourth, budget discipline. He never spent money he couldn't afford to lose. He treated lottery tickets like a controlled investment, not a desperate gamble. By 2012, Richard decided the world needed to know what he knew. He self-published a book titled Learn How to Increase Your Chances of Winning the Lottery. It wasn't a thick academic text, it was a direct, no-nonsense guide built entirely on his personal experience. And the public went wild for it. By 2013, the book had climbed to number 3 on Amazon's self-help bestseller list. He appeared on CNN, Fox News, and Fox Business. News outlets from around the world were calling. The man who won the lottery 7 times had become a celebrity. But while millions were buying his book, a very different group of people was paying close attention. And they weren't impressed. The math doesn't lie. The criticism came fast and it came hard. Statisticians pointed out something uncomfortable. The odds of winning the Florida Mega Money jackpot alone were approximately 1 in 2,400,000. Winning 7 separate Florida lottery prizes over 17 years, while impressive, was not mathematically impossible for someone who played consistently and in high volume. In other words, the more tickets you buy over decades, the more likely you are to win something, eventually. Critics argued that Richard's system wasn't a system at all. It was survivorship bias dressed up as strategy. For every Richard Lustig who won 7 times, there were hundreds of thousands of people who followed the exact same principles, picked their own numbers, stayed consistent, budgeted carefully, and won absolutely nothing. The math was blunt. No lottery strategy can change the fundamental odds of a random draw. The Florida lottery itself stated publicly that every drawing is independent. Past results have zero influence on future outcomes. Statisticians and probability experts were direct. Any method that claims to improve your odds in a truly random system is, by definition, not a method. It's a story told backwards, starting from the wins and building a reason around them. And then there was the money question. Richard's total verified winnings were $1,052,205.58 before taxes. But over 17 years of consistent high-volume lottery play, how much had he spent on tickets? That number was never publicly disclosed, and Richard never addressed it directly. Was the genius strategy actually profitable, or was it a very expensive hobby that happened to produce 7 memorable wins? The backlash. Richard Lustig didn't back down, not even slightly. When critics challenged him on television, he came prepared. On CNN and Fox News, he laid out his wins one by one: dates, amounts, official documentation. He wasn't defensive, he was calm. "I'm not saying I can guarantee you'll win," he told interviewers. "I'm saying my method gives you a better shot than what you're doing right now." He had a point that was hard to dismiss entirely. The average lottery player buys a quick-pick ticket, loses, and repeats. Richard had a disciplined, structured approach that, at minimum, kept him engaged and controlled his spending. Whether or not the numbers themselves mattered, the discipline around them was real. His book became a bestseller, reaching number 3 on Amazon's self-help list in 2013. He became the go-to voice whenever a massive jackpot made headlines, appearing on CNN, Fox Business, and international outlets. But the drama didn't end there. Over the years, lottery players who had purchased his book and followed it for months, sometimes years, began speaking out. They had spent thousands of dollars on tickets using his exact method. They had won nothing significant. Online forums and review sections filled with frustrated buyers who felt the book had oversold what was ultimately an unverifiable personal experience. Richard's response was consistent. "I never promised anyone they would win. I said it increases your chances. Read the book." Legally, he was protected. The book never made a guarantee. But the reputational damage was real. The man who had been celebrated as a lottery genius was now being called something else in certain corners of the internet. And through all of it, Richard kept playing. He never stopped. Even after the book, the fame, the criticism, and the controversy, he was still buying tickets in Florida, still picking his own numbers, still following his own rules. Because to Richard Lustig, the system wasn't just a product, it was a belief. And then on July 22, 2018, Richard Lustig passed away at the age of 67. The man who had spent 25 years trying to crack the lottery was gone. But the question he left behind was still very much alive. Genius, luck, or both? So, what do we make of Richard Lustig? The facts are not in dispute. He won 7 verified Florida lottery prizes between January 1993 and August 2010. He collected $1,052,205.58 in total prize money. all confirmed by official Florida lottery records and reported by the Orlando Sentinel. He wrote a book that reached the top 3 on Amazon's self-help list. He appeared on national television dozens of times. What is in dispute is whether any of it was replicable. The honest answer is probably not. The lottery is, by design, a random system. No number selection method, no consistency strategy, no budget discipline changes the fundamental probability of a random draw. The math doesn't bend for anyone. But here's what Richard Lustig actually proved, even if unintentionally. Discipline, consistency, and a structured approach to anything, even something as random as the lottery, can produce results that look extraordinary from the outside. Whether those results were caused by the system or simply survived long enough to be noticed is a question that may never have a clean answer. He wasn't a fraud. He was a man who won 7 times, believed he knew why, and spent the rest of his life trying to share that belief with the world. Whatever the answer, his story is far from the strangest one in the world of lottery winners. Was he a genius? Was he just lucky? Or was he both? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you want to see what happens when lottery winners actually do find a real loophole in the system, not luck, not a book, but a mathematical exploit that forced the lottery to pay them back, that story is on our next video. Don't miss it!